Hey, soul survivors. I'd like to talk to you today about how mental illness can affect romantic relationships, also close relationships between parent and child, and why it is so important for us to get back to being ourselves, building our self esteem up. Because regardless of what the mental illness is, it can affect a relationship. And over time, we could have somewhat of a mental illness as well, CPTSD, alcoholism, codependency, anxiety, major depressive disorder. All these things can affect our relationships. So moving forward or interacting with the people that we really care about, it can start to destroy those relationships too. So we want to make sure that we're healthy when we're interacting with people, because it really throws off the dynamics when we're not quite ourselves. So there are about nearly half of the adults, at least one time in their life, will suffer with some form of mental illness. And it can lead to a decrease in your productivity. It can affect your employment. It can cause physical ailments and even just a poorer quality of life. And we definitely want to keep our life as positive and as productive and loving as we can have. So, you know, the good news about this is it is possible. It is possible to bring ourselves back up to form loving relationships, long-term partnerships with somebody who deserves to be loved. So if we're struggling with it, there are three main ways that a relationship can be damaged due to mental illness. So, we see how things went bad with our person if they were a narcissist or sometimes, borderline histrionic. It's hard as a lay person to know exactly what we're dealing with, but we know it wasn't a healthy relationship and we lost ourselves. So there's shame, there's guilt, there's resentment, and there's also a stigma about mental illness. So a lot of times people don't seek help. It's good to seek help if you're struggling with something. And then a lot of times people either don't recognize it or they're too embarrassed to admit what's going on with them because of the stigma in society. So reaching out is a healthy thing to do. Feel free to ask me things. There's also therapists. NAMI is a free support system that's available online. And, you know, um, there's a lot of strain on relationships, and these relationships can have a lot of disappointment, feelings of rejection, even a disconnection, and it can lead to a lot of stress. Sometimes people who are on antidepressants can have a decrease in their libido, which means their sex drive. That can affect intimate relationships. And without proper communication, that our partner might feel that they're unwanted, and it's the interaction. Really good communication and love is what's going to bring a relationship through things. So when we go into a new relationship, if we bring secrets or things we're embarrassed about that we haven't worked through, even just being depressed, it's part of the healing cycle. And there is clinical depression too. So if you suffer with that, when you're depressed, you're going to react differently. You're going to possibly cancel plans or need more sleep. And there is also, if you've been in a narcissistic relationship or with somebody who has a mental illness, there can definitely be a risk of codependency. And that is where it's just unhealthy. It manifests as one partner allows the other person, they somewhat enable the other person's poor mental health. And they might overlook the addiction. They might not point it out. They start to feel what their self-worth is by the amount of care that you give to this person. And instead of having a healthy relationship and feeling needed, you're enabling them, and you feel needed because they either need you for money or to clean up after them, or other kinds of things. But codependency can actually increase the risk of the unhealthy behaviors and abusive behaviors. It leads to manipulation, name calling, and unhealthy dynamics. So if you think about how the narcissist acts when we are codependent, which they kind of knock us down to where we are. You start out, high, and then they start knocking you down to where you're dependent on them. And it's almost like now we need them. In the beginning, we were enjoying life, but now we need them. And they need us to dominate. And we get knocked down so much. And because of that Stockholm syndrome, due to the intermittent reinforcement, we start kind of needing them to where we're so fixated on them that we don't see what else is out there. And it's hard too, sometimes with religion or what's in your heart. You feel you took a vow that, sometimes you're stuck, but be cautious on staying in these relationships because they can really cause you to lose who you are, your sense of reality. And I just think that's very important to know that codependency can lead to more narcissism, or even if you're in a healthy relationship and you become codependent on somebody, that they're going to start reacting to you differently. So that's why it's good to try to get rid of as much baggage as possible and to understand each other, talk about things. Unfortunately, not everybody's willing to talk about things, and you have to understand the full scope. You have to understand them as well as them at least trying to understand where you're coming from. Agree to disagree if you need to, but when you're not even being listened to, it can be extremely toxic to you. So there needs to be a shift. People should feel empowered to seek help if they or their loved one needs some help with mental illness. And how to do that, it's good to address what is wrong, seek the help that you need. And if you start a new relationship, be honest about the things that you're going through, because you can have a supportive partner that can kind of keep you on track while you're healing. That's why like AA, they have like what are they called, sponsors, where you kind of keep each other on track. Somebody to hold you accountable for your actions, not to enable you, but to hold you to accountable to your actions. Accountability is really important in life in so many different ways. Also, Weight Watchers, those kind of things where they do the weigh-ins to keep you accountable, to see where your progress is, to keep you on track. And it's really good to take good care of yourself as you're healing, because mental illness will destroy a relationship, whether one party has it or both parties have it. Because the enabling will cause abuse to you. And once you have abuse, you start developing mental illnesses. And that's a key thing that I want to say, is if you deal with it too much and you enable it. Now, if you hold your boundaries and keep them on track and they want to be kept on track, it's better. They're still going to mess up a little bit though. And, it takes time to heal from some of the mental illnesses. Some good news is there is a possibility that can happen, but with narcissism, without them wanting to be held accountable and sticking to their promises and understanding both parties. And I was thinking a little bit about how does it get so toxic? What exactly is going on? And I started thinking, when our narcissist or whoever we're with starts telling us that our perceptions aren't correct, or when we're saying, I'm not yelling at you, I'm just trying to communicate. Yes, you're yelling at me. That we're like, I'm being me. I'm telling you I'm frustrated. I'm not angry per se, but I'm frustrated that we're not communicating. And they're like, no, you're angry. And it's like, I'm telling you what I feel. I'm telling you who I am. But the narcissist, they don't want to tell you who they are. So they manipulate during that time. And we don't know who they are. We don't know how to answer the questions because we don't have a full plate of the clues to solve the problem. And so when we're communicating with them, we're kind of saying this isn't what you are. And we're trying to get them back to, I don't know, the facade, and they know who they are. So in a sense, we're telling them to be somebody they're not. You're kind, you're not like this. Why are you acting like this? And they're not kind. They know that. And just like we know, we're not yelling, we're not angry, we're just trying to communicate. And they're telling us that we're not who we are saying we are. That nobody's living their real life. Nobody is appreciated for who they are. We don't know who the narcissist is. Should we appreciate it or not? Maybe that's not the right word. Knowledge of who the person is. You know, because there's times where you might get excited about something and talk louder, and you know, doesn't mean you're ready to leave. It means you're ready to work things out, to get things back on track. But during the devaluation stage, you start to see the mask, and the narcissist is showing you who they are. You know, and then they pretend everything's okay, like nothing happened. Some of the abuse can be quite bad. And then they talk you somehow into getting back into the relationship. If they are healed, that's a different situation, because then, you know, you're not going to be abused anymore. But does the narcissist heal? You know, if somebody's struggling with depression, and they heal from it, it could be a healthy relationship. That's why what we're going through, we have to, it kind of runs its course, you know, but we can make our healing quicker. So I have live chats for support, a great group of people, but we have to take our accountability, but also realize what we're dealing with. Are we enabling them? And that's why boundaries are important, and accountability. You know, how are we going to fix this? And I know some of you long to have your person back, but you're longing to be abused unless they change, and you're just enabling them. So it gets tricky with a narcissist because they don't like to go to counseling. And if they do, it's all BS anyways. So it's probably going to stay toxic, and they have those cycles. So it's going to be a roller coaster. And, you know, you can waste your whole life. And you can stay stuck in that mental illness unless you take the necessary steps. You know, it is up to us. So to have a healthy relationship, I want to help you guys through your journey. And also be aware, if you stay with your narcissist or whoever, that you don't enable them. And that's hard because sometimes we start feeling sorry, like they had a bad childhood, or you know, I see the stress they're going through at work, and that's okay, but there's healthy ways to deal with it and there's unhealthy ways. If it's a healthy way, you know, maybe work out at the gym, get those frustrations out. But in a relationship, it needs to be safe. And that's where it's going to grow. That's where it's going to flourish. And if it's not growing, and if it starts to regress, both people are going to feel off about it, and possibly search outside the relationship or start resenting the relationship. It causes so many different dynamics. And, you know, as soon as you get back on track, that comfort they don't like. So are you ever going to feel comfortable with a narcissist or somebody who isn't willing to take the healthy steps to change? So I just thought it was interesting and important to know that mental illness can wreak havoc on a relationship. So, regardless if you stay or leave, um, just don't enable, because that causes more abuse on you. And if you are struggling with something, let's work through it and get to that healthy, happy time again, because it is possible. It takes time, but it's like a weight lifted off your shoulder, and you will feel more vibrant and more alive. And there's so many adventures you're going to go on, meet new people, and you'll be all right. So feel free to comment below. Topic requests are always welcome. So are one-on-ones, and let's heal together.